Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story. It is March the 28th, day 87, and we're going to be in Joshua 20 today. So the concept here, because much of it is repetitive, is something that we've touched on. I don't know that we spent an entire podcast on this, but it's something we've touched on. But this chapter is about the designation of cities of refuge. So I'm going to read a couple of verses, and then we are going to talk about 3 or 4 specific elements in this passage. So he says, the Lord said to Joshua, now tell the Israelites to designate the cities of refuge as I instructed Moses. Anyone who kills another person accidentally or unintentionally can run, and unintentionally, so accidentally and unintentionally, can run to one of these cities. They will be places of refuge from relatives seeking revenge for the person who was killed. Upon reaching one of these cities, the one who caused the death will appear before the elders at the city gate and present the case. They must allow him to enter the city and give him a place to live among them. So let's just stop right there. The rest of it, I think we kind of know. But before I jump into the passage, so one of the things that you'll notice in Leviticus is Leviticus and Joshua and Deuteronomy and Numbers and any of those books, God has some sense or some concern with justice. What are some elements in your mind that define justice?
That's a challenging question.
Yeah, that's a hard question.
Terms like right, fairness, law, there's a lot of things that come to my mind when you start talking about justice. The right response to an action. I could come up with a long list.
Yeah, you?
I couldn't. No, when I think of justice, I just think that it's like the right thing is being carried out. When justice is being carried out, that means that things should be, you can't always make things perfectly right, because sometimes, even if someone gets what they deserve, in our eyes, it still doesn't fix everything that happened. And so, but justice is supposed to sort of even things out in a way that it's like, you've done this is the penalty for it, this is the punishment for it, this is what you are due because of what you've done. That's kind of how I see justice. And it's never one for one. It's just impossible to do that sometimes. Now in the Bible, if you killed someone, it was like in the Old Testament, well, that means you have to be put to death.
An eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas now we don't have that. Typically that's not the case, but in some ways that's good, depending on the case.
But we do say things like the punishment needs to match the crime.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because we feel like there is some weight to something they've done. So in modern terminology, you would hear words like lady justice. So the concept about lady justice is the picture that you'll see. It's a lady holding scales that's blindfolded.
Yeah.
The 2 specific elements in there are the blindfold and the scales. That there's no difference made between people. You can't see, so they're rich, they're poor, they're black, they're white. Justice is blind, or that's what it's supposed to be. And justice is fair. It's not weighted one way or the other. It's going to weigh it, and then whichever way it tips the scales is the way the decision should be made. But the question I have, I have some questions specifically about this passage, but I'm intrigued since I've started down this road.
Yeah.
We don't, in theory, we practice blind justice, but we don't. Nobody's blindfolded in that room. The people hearing the case aren't removed from the room. They get to see the person that's there, and it's one of the reasons why lawyers want you to put on your
Dress your best,
right?
Your manners,
right? Hold your head up.
Maybe shed a tear while you're giving your testimony.
Yeah, at the right place and time. It has a lot more impact.
Because I'm assuming out of the 3 of us, you've spent more time in a courtroom because of your previous career, not because
let's clarify that.
not because of crimes you
lengthy
committed.
rap sheet.
Right. In your observation of the court, is it difficult for humans to be blind where justice is concerned?
Absolutely. There's a lot of reasons. We have our own biases, whether we realize it or not. You do see the human person. Appearance does matter. Mannerisms matter, where they live. There's a lot of factors that come into it. And as
Male or female?
Absolutely. In your past history and upbringing and things, there's a whole list. Perhaps it's somebody you went to church with. You cannot help but having that factor in your thought process. And so, in theory, that's the way it's supposed to be, but it's very, very difficult, if possible.
Yeah. So, you're a pretty young person, and your view of the legitimacy of justice, how do you feel about it? Do you feel that, for the most part, it's a fair system, or do you think there are things in place that are challenging?
I think there are a lot of challenges that come with it. I think that it's really hard, even in our own eyes, like not within the justice system, but just in our own eyes. When we're trying to even carry out justice amongst our kids or our family or something like that, and we're trying to make things right. Knowing a person's past, knowing more about them, that can affect your judgment and make things more difficult. And if you care about somebody, or even in the courtroom, specifically in the courtrooms, like it can be very difficult because we, like you were saying, we have all these biases that we don't even realize. And some of those are not necessarily even bad things necessarily, but they affect our judgment. They do impact our judgment, whether we like it or not, and whether we even if we are intentional and know that they affect it or not. And so I think just as we as humans can never be perfect. I think that our systems can never be perfect. I think the systems that we have, but I think we can get as close as we possibly can. I think we can always improve, and I think the justice systems we have in place, like the laws we have in place, I think are there for a reason, and I appreciate them. I appreciate being in a place where we have laws, that there is a system. Do I think it could be better? Always, but I think it could be much, much worse. And so when I look at that compared to even other systems in other countries, I can appreciate what we have, and that they're there. The reason they're there is to protect our freedoms.
So it says anyone who kills another person accidentally and unintentionally can run to one of these cities. So the question I have here about that specifically is, do you believe there has been a trial and someone has been found guilty, and that's how they get to go to the city of refuge? Because later on we're going to talk about this at the end. It says the people they're protecting them from are family members who want to seek revenge. So do you think, okay, they've accidentally, unintentionally killed somebody and they've taken off running, or who gets to decide what was accidental and unintentional? In this passage, it doesn't, I don't believe, give us that clarity of when they decide, does it?
Well, he says in verse 6, the slayer must stay in the city and be tried by the local assembly, which will render a judgment. In my mind, the way I see this, something has happened. The guy's like, oops. I didn't mean to, didn't want to, and he takes off to get to one of those cities of refuge until his case can be heard. It was for his protection and the ability to present the facts so that people with a rational mind that are detached, it's not the immediate family, can look at the overall picture and then render a verdict that represents justice as best they can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from hearing it, it sounds like he wasn't tried where he lives. I mean, he
goes somewhere it's safe until he can be tried.
And he didn't walk; he ran. It's like,
well, of course you are.
It's scary stuff.
He said after lunch,
did he run over him with a camel? I don't know. Those
Drop
are
the
things
piano
I've
on
wondered.
him. I don't know, but
his axe slipped out of his hand.
Could have.
I wonder how many unintentional killings there are. I mean, I guess that they happen. They must happen.
Well, they had,
but often
they
enough
had
there's a law. So.
Often enough there were multiple cities for people to run to.
Yeah, geographically they were spread out, so you'd have an equal opportunity to get to a place. You didn't have to travel.
Everyone's just walking around with a knife, and they're just accidentally walking to each other. Dang it, it happened again.
It happened again.
I don't know what they're doing, but.
Are you dying?
Yeah.
Well, so it goes on to say, upon reaching one of these cities, the one who caused the death will appear before the elders at the city gate and present his case. They must allow him to enter the city and give him a place to live among them. They don't put him in prison. They don't lock him up. He gets to live among them. How would you feel about someone accused of murder of some kind being
just free to roam?
Free to roam, yeah.
Move in next door.
Right.
Yeah, I think
your neighborhood's, Oak Hill, Oak Hill's
yeah,
a city of refuge.
I'd probably move to another place. I'm just saying. It does bring out an interesting point, because we see early on the presumption of innocence until there's a process that takes place. And God in His sovereignty gave us an awesome responsibility to look at situations and to render a decision and a verdict that best represents justice and what it looks like.
Thank God. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Do the right thing.
Yeah, it's one of the best examples of innocent until proven guilty, I think, that we see in Scripture, in that, you're not supposed to treat them as if they have done this terrible thing. But I will say, though, from my personal experience, even when I'm moving to a new place or when I'm looking at different areas, like, I specifically go online, I look up like different kinds of offenders or things like that in the area. You can find some of that information because not that I'm like living in fear, but I'm just like, I want to know the terrain.
Is that why you bought your house where you did?
I was going to ask you, did he actually look?
I'll say, like, we looked, I will say this, in New York, like, every other house, it seems like there's someone who's done something criminal. Yeah, so, but it's pretty crazy. But here, it's a lot better. But it's just like, I just want to know. You kind of want to know that stuff.
You see why we don't want them moving down here?
Yeah.
Every other house.
I'm not the other house, I promise.
You're the house in the middle.
Yeah, the house right in the middle.
Okay.
But I do think that I think this is an example of innocent to proven guilty pretty well. But I would think, though, you're living in one of these areas, like if I lived in one of these towns, then God's like, all right, these are the towns you can go to. I might be like, well, time to move. Like, now I'm gonna have all these criminals coming to my town, potential criminals coming to my town because they're trying to seek refuge. I don't know. I might.
Well, here's the interesting part to me, Jay. You started on verse 6, but let's read the rest of it. It says, "But the slayer must stay in that city and be tried by the local assembly, which will render judgment. And he must continue to live in that city until the death of the high priest who was in office at the time of the accident. After that, he is free to return to his own home in the town from which he fled." So, even if he's found innocent, because if he's found guilty, he's going to die.
Right.
If he's found innocent, he still can't go home. Is there any truth to that? Like, is there any reasoning to that? I mean, I don't know. I started to say the biggest case in my lifetime. Yeah, not in your lifetime. This is pre your lifetime. Okay. I'm pretty sure. Would have been O.J. Simpson.
Yes. Oh gosh, I was going to say about this after that.
Okay,
yeah, continue.
But this was pre your lifetime.
Oh
right?
yeah.
I guess it's 30 years.
Before I was born.
35 years. Yeah. He had a really hard time, even though he was found innocent, finding a place to live. He ended up in Sin City, for a long time, and ended up back in jail there because, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But he, not for murder, something else. It's difficult to go back once a big crime has been committed, even if you've been found innocent, because everybody has an opinion, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The justice or the judge doesn't remove people's opinions. At least that's my experience.
Well, even Scripture says, and I believe it was Jesus himself said, the prophet is not without honor except in his own hometown among his own people. And if a godly person has difficulty getting along with people in those relationships, imagine somebody who has committed some serious, significant crime going back. It's going to be difficult to blend back in.
Yeah, so what do you want to tell us about it?
All right, so this is fascinating. So I'd not even heard about the trial of O.J. I didn't even know anything. All I knew is that I knew this. I knew the name O.J. Simpson, and I knew that I was like, I've heard that, I knew that he was in jail because he was currently in jail when I had heard about stuff, and I was like, so I ended up watching the
But he
the
wasn't
show.
in jail for the murder. He
That's
was
the thing.
That's right. He was in
Which
jail
is-
because people had stole his memorabilia, and he went and nailed him up at gunpoint.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy.
And the judge didn't have any mercy on him because he thought he should have went to
Hit the
jail the
first
first time. So yeah.
Yeah, but so I've watched the trial of O.J. Simpson, like the series where like they kind of like recreate everything, and I watched it and I was shocked. I had no idea that he was found innocent,
Oh yeah.
and so I watched it as with like blind to it, and then when they were like
Not guilty.
not guilty, I
You were like,
I was shocked. I was like, I
Yeah.
can't believe this. I even looked it up because I was like, this can't be real.
Yeah.
And I looked it up. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
So I remember
fascinating.
the world was glued to their TVs
Yeah.
that day, to watch the verdict. If it
Yeah.
don't fit, you must quit. That was Johnny Cochran's famous
Famous,
line.
yeah.
But who O.J. Simpson introduced into the world? The name.
Oh, the
One of his lawyers.
Kardashians.
Yeah, his lawyer was the Kardashian father.
Yeah.
He's the one that was his initial lawyer that
Oh, yeah.
took him with the skunk hair. Yeah.
But related to this though, with me not even knowing that information, it's so interesting because I just always assumed that he was found guilty because I knew he's in prison,
Yeah.
so he must have been found guilty. And then they were saying he was getting out. This is more recently, but I didn't realize. I thought he was getting out for murder. I didn't realize it was for something else entirely.
Right.
And so just because all growing up people were like, he like obviously he did it, was kind of the thing. I just assumed that, and even here it's like these like
Right,
guys
you
that
just
they have.
assumed,
I
right.
just assumed, and so
Yeah.
that's the thing. Even with this, it would be hard to go back because
It would be.
your family who is there, or the person's family, or whoever you killed, whatever might have happened. There are all those people now that you'd have to go back to, and it's a little different now in the age of the internet, where it's kind of hard to escape
Yeah.
that. But here it's like, you
But after the high priest died,
yeah.
I mean, so if you kill somebody when the guy's young,
Yeah.
you're stuck.
You're gonna live there.
Yeah. But if you're going to kill somebody,
Unless you kill the high priest, then
The
If you
rule-
kill the high,
Then you go
Earn the release.
then you got to leave another town. Though. But then if you're like, I hate this town, get the high priest, go to
It was
another
an
place.
accident.
No, this keeps happening to me.
So at the end of the passage, this is how I want to close. It says, anyone who accidentally killed another person could take refuge in one of these cities. In this way, they could escape being killed in revenge prior to standing trial before the local assembly. And it's saying one of the other passages said the family, they're in danger, the family members taking revenge. Why is revenge so dangerous? And why does God tell us to avoid it?
Well, revenge is us seeking justice for ourselves. It's us seeking justice instead of going through the proper channels. And I think even just as a culture, we really glorify revenge. Even like revenge is sweet, and like some of the most popular movies, like even the John Wick movies, which I do enjoy, pretty fun stuff, or like even like Taken movies or things like that. They're all about revenge or getting revenge, where someone has wronged you and now you're gonna get back at them, and people love these movies. I mean, and I don't necessarily think there's something wrong with enjoying them, but I think it is something that we as a culture do believe that we do deserve the opportunity to get revenge or seek revenge. And even as I listen to some of these crime podcasts and I hear about, Jess loves crime podcasts, even as I hear these and I listen to the stories of the families who they thought it was somebody, and they're going to do everything to make sure this person suffers even before they even go to trial, to make sure they suffer, and that
Only to
people hate
find out
them.
it's not them.
Only to find out it's not them. They spend like 30 years in prison. It's like, it's pretty awful stuff when you hear about that, and because they just want that revenge, and so it just eats people inside. It's a terrible
I think
thing.
the biggest danger with revenge is it's based on feelings and emotions, and we don't think clearly. We don't gather all the information. We don't have the authority. So there's a lot of things, but I think primarily it's based on feelings and emotions in those bad situations, and we seldom ever going to make a good decision.
Yeah, we're flawed in our
Yes.
outlook. Our emotions are heightened. Usually it's anger,
Yeah.
hurt, loss. It's all of the worst emotions in one ball. Revenge is, and it usually doesn't work out good. So, good. All right, well let's close in prayer today. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for pictures of justice that we can learn things from. Thank you for the understanding that we should not make rash judgments against people, but they should have an opportunity to be able to express themselves, share, present their case. Help us not to act in revenge, in anger, loss, hurt, frustration at the moment that we can't see clearly what may be happening. Help us to allow the time and the patience for justice to be taken care of, and give us the patience for that to happen. In Jesus' name.